First of all, where is the war effort right now? Are things have things ground to a bit of a stalemate?
Well, I don't think they have. I mean, we are now 10 months into this conflict, which Putin thought would last just 2 weeks. It's very clear that the Russian military has taken a real hammering. 2,500 tanks have been destroyed. We hear only last week that the Russians are taking nuclear warheads off cruise missiles and using them conventionally. It would appear that the Russians are running very low on precision-guided missiles. And it's also very clear that Putin now wants to draw this conflict out as long as possible. We've heard about cost of living crisis and the cost of fuel and the suffering that people are having in this country and across Europe. I think Putin is hoping if he can draw this conflict out, the French and perhaps the Germans will only do one cold Christmas. And if he can bring the conflict out to the middle of next year, we then see the spectre of elections coming over the horizon in this country and also the US. And I think that Putin is hoping that our resolve to continue with the support to Ukraine might waver. And it's absolutely crucial that it doesn't yield, because the other thing that Putin is desperate to avoid is for NATO to get more directly involved in this conflict. So things might appear to be going quiet at the moment, but we know how cold it is in this country. It's even worse. It's bitter in Ukraine at the moment, and fighting in these sort of conditions are very difficult. But this winter is going to be crucial. And if the Ukrainians can retake Crimea over the winter, then we may be in a very different position. But it is very much Putin's trying to draw this out, to draw the energy and support out of the West. And we must make sure that we continue to support the Ukraine to make sure that they do defeat the Russians really as quickly as possible, so we can get back to something like normal.
Is it a possibility that Crimea might well be retaken in any sort of short timescale at all? That would be the most remarkable advance from even the remarkable advances that the Ukrainian army have seen, getting, of course, quite close to Crimea. But, of course, the Russians annexed Crimea back in 2014. That would be a really remarkable stage of the war. Is it your view that it's the Ukrainians' next goal?
Well, I think Crimea is absolutely pivotal. Crimea is vital ground for Putin, and in military parlance, vital ground is ground that is critical to the mission. And if you lose that ground, you will use all means to save it. Conversely, I think before the war started, Crimea was not vital ground for the Ukrainians. As you say, Russia annexed it in 2014. I think the Ukrainian military now it's got the habit of winning, as the Russian army has the habit of losing. So it is very much still on the offensive. One could see, and also the fact the Russian military have performed so badly, one could see it would be possible for the Ukrainians to retake Crimea, perhaps during this winter. They are being very clever with their way they're fighting this war, the Ukrainians, and not telegraphing anything. But I think Crimea could be the key here. And maybe it is the negotiation piece that will get the Russians out of Ukraine. So I think it is in all of our interests to keep a very close eye on it and enable the Ukrainians to be able to be in a position where they could take Crimea. So I think absolutely it's possible. It's focusing the minds of the Russians at the moment, and that's why they want to draw it out. If they can create the stalemate, which I don't think there is a stalemate at the moment, or certainly the perception of it throughout the rest of this winter, we're then into this period where people are starting to think about elections, etc., etc. So, yeah, it's possible, and we need to enable them to do it.
That is really remarkable.